It'll take me a little bit to get sort of set up, but... All right, guys, we are live. This is CPO with o3djeeps.com, and I'm here with Tom Heusinger from HIDprojectors.com. Say hi, Tom.
Hey, Chris. Hey, guys. How are you?
Yeah, so this is a live Q&A session with Tom. So if you've been following me on YouTube and or social media, you will know that I just installed a set of HID lights that I got from HIDprojectors.com, and I had a lot of questions. I think I bugged Tom a lot during my install and even before the purchase, asking questions. And then I've got a lot of questions from you guys. So what I thought would be cool, and Tom agreed, thankfully, would be to get together and just have a chat and talk HID lighting, and maybe answer any questions that you might actually have for him. And you know, if you happen to be on and watching this live, great. Send a request. If you have a question, you can send it in the comments to this video, or you can do it on social media, and I will try my best to keep up. And we'll just see if we can answer any questions. Otherwise, if you're not watching this live, hopefully there will be enough discussion that we cover whatever it is you might have if you watch this after this is recorded. So I don't do very many live videos, and so, you know, I figured it would be a treat to do one with somebody who was a lot smarter than I am, and so thought I would take that opportunity. So, Tom, you know, HIDprojectors.com, I guess we'll just start there. And why don't you tell us just a little bit about your company and where you're at and what you do and all that good stuff?
Yeah, sure. Well, first, you know, thanks for having me out here. It really is a pleasure to do this, and we look forward to it because you get a lot of these same questions. So I'm hoping we can cover kind of like what we do over a social media basis with our FAQs in more of a live environment, so you guys can see maybe some of the products. I brought some here to show, as well as just ping Chris your questions, and I'll do my best to answer them as well as we can. So just getting on with it, a little bit about the company. It actually was started by well, not by accident, but kind of by happenstance. We were building a 1976 Ford Bronco, believe it or not, doing a resto mod on it, and fast forward, built some lights. People started to like them. Jeep guys found me, got kind of larger from there. Went through a few different iterations and a lot of feedback from customers. So if you guys are one of the first customers out there that helped us out, probably had a say in what we're offering now. And yeah, we've started to evolve from what was a basic, very purpose-built light focused on output to something that not only now is 18 times brighter than a stock Jeep Wrangler headlight, but also has all these cool, unique features and functions and custom options that you guys are kind of helped us develop, that we've become known for.
That's pretty awesome. So, wait, so you said something in there that that I keyed on. 18 times brighter than the stock. That's some serious lighting. Have you done any official testing or measuring of that? I mean, how do you come up with 18 times brighter?
Yeah, so we absolutely do that. We've got what's called a lux meter. It basically measures light output, and we did it at a certain distance. And in our case, we do everything kind of an analytical background by trade. So everything's been measured from a distance of 100 feet, and we measure the lux or the output at 100 feet, both at the hot spot, which is the center portion of the light where you want it most down road. And then also we do a second measurement, 15 feet to either side of the hot spot. And that's supposed to represent the outside width of a lane, or the ditches if you're driving in a lane at night. And the whole premise behind this is 100 feet away, if you're driving 60 miles an hour, that's roughly 100 feet per second. So at that was the distance that we came up with. And then through some fancy math, we came up with some averages, and we tested our lights versus stock Wrangler lights versus a whole bunch of different options that are out there in the market in the 7-inch round capacity, because you guys probably know there's a lot to choose from. And we were proud to say we came out on top, but it's not just brightness that you're worried about, it's where you put that light. So it's not just getting lux or not just getting lumens, which some people will get confused with. It's about putting that light that you have where you want it on the road, and where you don't want it, which is scattered all about, blinding people or blinding oncoming traffic. So if you can look at our website, we've got an About Us page and it has some output pictures. We've got a very distinct, what's called a cutoff, that actually prevents light from spilling on top of the shield, really, and into or blinding other drivers, and keeps it where you do want it, which is down and focused on the road. And of course, I'm sure we'll talk about aiming a little bit. It's probably a conversation we can have. But when you dial all that in, you end up with light where you want it and not where you don't want it, just to kind of simplify.
Yeah, I will say that is probably the cutoff. That's the thing I noticed the most when I went to the HIDs over what I had already. So I was already running an upgraded light. I was running an LED light, just some generic, Chinese-made common LED light that a lot of people put on for a budget light. But there was a distinct difference in that cutoff that sort of surprised me, and it actually took me a little while to get used to it. You get used to it really quick because it's really cool, but it is a very sharp cutoff that I wasn't expecting. So, and now that I'm driving around with those lights, I look to see where that cutoff is, where it hits the car in front of me, and it gives me a lot of comfort in the fact that now that I have them aimed, and like you said, we'll probably talk about this later, because I spent I actually did a video on aiming the headlights, and I think that's probably one of those things that most people take for granted. They just assume if you put a headlight in the same position that the other headlight was, it will automatically be aligned, and we know that's not true. But so anyway, after I got them all aligned, I'm driving around, and I can see this distinctive sharp cutoff, and I can tell it's below the rear view mirror of the car in front of me, and it's right on, and so it's kind of interesting because I think a lot of people just roll up and blind the back end of a vehicle. So it's been kind of cool to get used to. Now my wife's van has HIDs from the factory, but it's not a distinctive cutoff. It's more of there's more of a spill of light above the cutoff. But yeah, these are definitely pretty cool.
Yeah. Your wife's fan has what's called a Fresnel lens, and has a bit of a distortion built in to soften that, because like you said, the initial reaction is, wow, there's light, and then there's no light. It's very interesting until you become what we call kind of a headlight junkie. You crave that cutoff, right? You crave the way that the color band on top of that cutoff has a little purple flicker to it. But for the first time user, it's funny because we'll get guys who call us up and they say, man, I bought the lights because I love the way they look. The next morning, after they've driven with them for the first time at night, we'll get these great phone calls that say, I can't believe how bright these things are. It is phenomenal. So those are the best compliments that we can get, is when people's expectations are exceeded, especially in the performance category, because we did start this out as a way to increase your performance and help you see better at night, which ultimately results in a safer environment, both for you and for the people that are around you, either oncoming traffic or those that you're now able to avoid because you can see. And I'm not trying to be facetious, but when you look at that stock Jeep headlight compared to what you can have and what is available out there, it really is a shame that more people don't have this type of lighting on their vehicle. It is a safer environment all around.
So one thing, talking about that cutoff, I think there's a misconception by those people who haven't yet run this type of light, is that it's there's an assumption, and I got some questions like this on my YouTube channel, which is why I'm bringing it up. There's some assumptions that you can't see anything above the cutoff, and it's completely bright, in daylight-ish below the cutoff, but that means you can't see street signs and all that stuff. But what I found in reality is there is a distinctive, it's bright below and it's dark above, but there's enough reflection off the roadway that still lights everything up in the distance. So I don't feel like I have a problem seeing street signs and all that stuff on the road, but it seems like with the cutoff you would. But is it because the light's bouncing off of everything else that it just sort of lights everything else up? Is that why? Or
no, I think you're seeing a little bit of a reflection based on where you are. You really need to get out there and just drive. Like, we've got some nighttime driving videos that can elaborate this better than I could probably explain it. But think of it this way: you've got light where you need it and not where you don't. So it isn't like it's pitch black where everyone else could see before with their subpar headlights. Like, it's hard to explain. You're getting an enormous amount of performance out of the lights, which is going to just blow away everything else that you had before. So yes, you'll be able to still see your street signs. You'll be able to see things in the distance. So it's both farther reaching and wider reaching than what you had previously. So you had, I think you called it the blob, was the way
Right.
before. That blob was not focused anywhere. So now you're taking the light, you're harnessing it, and you're putting it where you need it and not where you don't. But no, you'll be able to see street signs just fine. And we've got our YouTube channel too that folks can check out. We've got some rolling videos of folks driving at night. And Chris, I'm sure you'll probably pick some up on your dash cam too. But the best thing to do is just get out there and experience it.
Yeah, no doubt. And I did post a little bit of driving footage. I can't remember if I did it. I think I did it in the headlight aiming video a little bit. But yeah, I think the problem with the video footage is it's hard to replicate what the human eye will see, because your camera makes some adjustments, for the light output. So the darks may look darker on the video than they really are, and and lights can get washed out. But yeah, I just wanted to point out the fact that it seems like it would be because. And again, I bring this up because somebody asked me the question on YouTube, but it was like, oh, well, if you can't see anything above the cutoff, then that's dangerous. You can't see signs, and that's not really how it is. So
we're taking existing technology that, like for your example, your wife's van has, but we're boosting it, right? Instead of that Fresnel lens, we have a clear lens. So we're taking that same technology with better optics or enhanced optics, I guess you could say. So it's the same premise, but you're putting that boosted performance in your Jeep headlights, which never existed before.
Right. Yeah. So let me ask you this question. I have previously run. I'll call them. I don't think retrofit is the right term, but I have put HID bulbs inside my stock housings, and that was a horrible failure. And I think that there's a lot of people who are enticed by that initially because it's a super cheap way to go. But clearly, what I have now with these custom housings, which we'll talk a little, I want to understand more about what goes into your retrofit lights. But why is it a bad idea to stick an HID light into a factory housing?
Yeah, so let's cover it for both HID and LED, because LED bulbs now seem to be all the rage. It's a bad idea for a couple of reasons. Number one, you have a reflector-based housing in a stock Jeep headlight. So there is a housing that's got kind of a bowl shape to it with distinctive patterns inside. Those patterns are designed to put the light in a pattern that is focused on the road. When you put in a bulb that kind of exceeds the engineered capacity of those patterns, it starts to scatter things all over the place. The best way I can describe it is if you were to just drive around with your high beams on. Yeah, you'll get a lot more light, but there's a reason why people don't do it, right? Because it blinds other drivers, and it's safe. So you could save your $30 on your cheap HID plug and play or LED plug and play kit, just drive around with your high beams on all day. But it's effectively the same thing. You're putting a lot more light into a housing that isn't designed for it. That's where the projector comes in. That projector takes that same or a similar HID bulb, or in some cases an LED chip on a special parabolic reflector, and it harnesses it and focuses where you need it. And think of it like this. Sometimes I use this analogy. Remember the old school mag flashlights, the big long ones? And
dude, I used to rock. I'm a former cop, man. That was standard issue.
Yeah. So you used to take the end and you could adjust it from a flood beam to a spot beam, right? So when you take that projector, that's the spot beam, or it's the focused beam. It takes that light. You're not changing the brightness of the bulb, but you are changing where the optics are pointing it. So instead of it being a flood and just scattered everywhere, you could go to a spot beam or somewhere in between in some cases, and now you know that you're harnessing that light, and in the effect of it or the impact of it, the results will vary by a large margin. So that's what we're doing. The projector is harnessing it and focusing that light, where the plug-and-play kit is just scattering it all over the place, just like you would be if you had your high beams on.
Yeah, so the lesson I learned from there is those are horrible for a lot of reasons, but there isn't a way to aim those headlights in a way that actually makes for a proper lighting pattern. So yeah, I mean, it was cool. I tried it. Actually, it was a gift. It's the first gift I've ever given back. Really, I couldn't run them. I tried. I was super appreciative of the person that gave it to me, but yeah, it didn't work. And I was at that point, I declared that there was no way I was going to do HID lights again until I could do them proper.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's why that's why we're here talking now, because I finally figured out how to make that happen proper.
If I can add to that, there's
Yeah.
two things I want to touch on. There's you said it with the aiming piece, and that's kind of where HID bulbs got a bad rap, but also with the quality piece, right? So you've got to have the right piece. So first of all, I think it's the quality of the bulb has to be good. So if you're doing these cheap plug and play kits, there are some good bulbs out there, and I won't try to name names, but odds are if you're spending $29.95 on your plug and play kit, you're not getting good quality parts. So then you get a bad rep because they failed, right? And they turned off and they only lasted a certain amount of time. The other piece is just an education piece. Like folks really didn't know that there was an option or an alternative. So when they see the brand new lights on I don't know, XYZ luxury car that has these HID blue headlights, they go online and they search for that, and they think that that is an acceptable solution for them to get a similar light output. And it really isn't. So maybe that's the reason why we're here too, to help educate people that there is an alternative. Yes, it's a much more expensive alternative, but it's a safer purpose-built alternative that's going to result in the output that I think everybody wants to believe they're going to get with a cheap kit, but the reality is it's just not going to happen.
Yeah, that makes sense. I can tell you those ballasts that I ran put out an immense amount of RF interference. Those cheap ballasts.
Yeah.
So I guess while we're still here, sort of talking about this, I am kind of curious about. I didn't disassemble the lights to see what all goes on the inside, but there's a lot of stuff in there, including some moving parts, right? What makes up these internals?
Well, maybe should we start with a light? I've got a whole bunch of stuff here.
Yeah, show and tell's awesome.
Show and tell.
This is video. We can show off stuff.
Yeah, because I think this is the part that people are going to want to see. Hey, what's the difference in your Revision 2.0 lineup? But I do want to say first, we built lights for just about every vehicle. So I know this is a Jeep show and a Jeep specific conversation, but if you guys out there, we've got lights for just about anything. But let's start with our Revision 2.0 lineup. We've got 4 lights in this family, and then a 5th option for what we call the custom builder or the design your own feature. That one maybe we can touch on later in the show. But let's start with our base model. So this is what we call our Revision 2.0 Classic. And the reason it's called a Classic is because it's got a nice chrome shroud, and we sell a lot of these to guys who have classic cars. This is the performance-based model, no frills, no extra LEDs, no halos, no angel eyes. We'll get on all that stuff in a minute. Let's talk about performance. So every single one of the lights that we're going to talk about today all have the same projector, all have that same output, all have the same performance that across the line. So we start there. We have our own designed housing. This one is actually made specifically for a JK. So we developed and designed the back of the headlight, and it was engineered. We took a bunch of, I think we took 2 years or so to develop it, much longer than I wish we could have. But the result was something pretty cool. A universal fitment, and for us, an easier way to assemble these, which allows us to do a lot of these different custom options that we'll go through. So back to the light, the black part back here, that's the housing. That's kind of the home where everything lives. The outside piece, this clear lens, is the outside lens. This is what's called a polycarbonate lens. It's got a UV coating, and that's done on purpose to prevent yellowing and fading from UV exposure, from sun exposure. It's our own lens model, and it kind of models what the stock Jeep JK lens kind of feels. It's got a nice dome shape to it. It's got a similar output. Inside the lens is the projector. If you guys can see that, probably get some reflection. But the projector's right in the middle, and then what's sitting around the outside, that's called a shroud. In this case, this is the classic shroud for us. So it's a chrome shroud. In this case, it mounts around the projector, and this is what gives the personality of the headlight. Kind of the think of it as like changing out the wheels on your Jeep, right? You can have chrome wheels, you can have black wheels, you can have beadlock You can have, deep dish or whatever you've got. You can change out your wheels, you change out the look of your Jeep. Same thing. You change out the shroud, you change out the look of the lights. And everything can be customized, everything can be painted, but you have right here the base setup. So one housing, projector in the middle, the shroud, and then the lens. Now, Chris, you're probably wondering, well, let's talk about the components inside the projector, right?
How did you know?
So inside the projector is what you call the moving part. It's a solenoid-based cutoff shield, and that is in there. So you only get one bulb. With guys will ask, hey, well, where's this dual filament bulb? Well, no, that's not how HID bulbs work. You get one bulb, and it's on. And the cutoff shield in this case is flipped up, and it's kind of I think it's like reactive. The word I'm searching for is refractive. There it is, a refractive-based output, right? So the shield is going to be up at the bottom, and it's blocking the light that comes down. It's actually doing the inverse. So when the shield is flipped up, you're going to get your low beam, and then when you hit your high beams, that shield flips down and gives you the full use of the projector, and that gives you your high beam output. So behind the scenes is a bulb, and then you've got a high beam wire and two bulb wires coming out. And that's your basic setup for the base model. And as you covered in one of your videos, there is a harness that comes along with it. And for the Jeep guys, it installs with a 10mm ratchet. There's two ground connections and one power connection. And a set of these classics can be in your Jeep in 45 minutes.
Yeah, so those are literally almost plug and play.
Yeah.
So it's when we get into the halos and the angel eyes and the demon eyes that it gets a little bit more involved from an install perspective. But and that's quite frankly why I wanted to do one video just showing the headlight install without all that other stuff, because not everybody's going to be into that. Like, I know a lot of people who could care less about halos and angel eyes, and that's fine. But just the actual HID lights themselves go in relatively easy. The only connections really are to the battery outside of in ground, outside of the headlight, adapter. But
yeah, and that we would constitute as plug and play. Now, we should probably cover why we have a relay harness.
Let's talk.
Okay, so first I want to just touch on that real quick. That's why we call it plug and play. I think a lot of people, that term gets thrown around maybe a little too much. So some guys want to say, hey, can I just unbox these and have them magically show up on my Jeep? Well, there's got to be some level.
Yeah, I want all my parts to be like. Of course, if I had that, I wouldn't have a YouTube channel. So.
So you do have to do a little bit of work. We do have some videos. Chris, you did a great one as well. We have a big instruction sheet that you can download on our website. We also give you a copy, and it's nice full color. I think it's 11 by 12, or it's a large sheet of paper, easy to understand.
It's huge.
Yeah, we've got a tech support line too. We've got a couple guys in the shop that walk through it, and those are the guys who build the lights, so they know what they're talking about. But the whole point of the harness is we're actually just taking the signal from your Jeep. So you're going to get one plug that plugs into your H13, in this case, socket. And what that's just doing is saying, hey, tell the harness whether I should be on or off, or if I'm on, whether I should be in low beam or high beam mode. So it's just taking those signals, running them through some wiring that we've provided to our relay. Then our relay is saying, okay, I'm going to do all the magic. If I'm on and I'm in low beam mode, I send power here. If I'm on and I'm in high beam mode, I send power there. I'm oversimplifying it, but that's essentially how it works. And it's pulling power from the battery as opposed to pulling power through the switch. So for the classic guys, or if guys got a CJ or something like that, it's very important that you don't want to be pulling power through the headlight switch, because sometimes those parts are old and they may not be able to take some of the extra power or the draw that they're going to get over time, especially if the wires aren't in the greatest of shape. So taking the signal, pushing it through the battery, letting the battery do the work is where the magic happens. And then for the JKs, it also allows our built-in CAN bus cancelers in our ballasts, which we probably can talk about too, to avoid any flickering issues, any CAN bus issues, any kind of light bulb out warning. So all that is done between a combination of the relay harness and our very high quality ballast, and then the power is passed through to the bulb.
Right. So, yeah. So yeah, I definitely want to talk about CAN bus and anti-flicker, because that's something that are sort of inherently challenging with the JKs. But I do want to I'll preemptively answer a question that I may get in the future, so I can just point people to this video. And that is, if your headlights are being powered directly from the battery and you accidentally leave your headlights on, is it going to drain your battery? And so in the JK, there is a in this CAN bus circuitry, it will automatically, if you leave your headlights on, it will automatically power down the system in order to protect you from yourself. Like, so if you, same thing with a dome light, if you leave your dome light on, I don't know what time it is, 10 minutes, whatever it is, it will automatically just shut down and go, oh, he probably left it on accidentally. It'll turn it off. Sometimes it drives me crazy when it does it, but the same thing is built in to the JK for the headlights. If you leave your headlights on, it will eventually just shut them off automatically. And because it's shutting them off through the through that same relay that we use to turn them on, it will shut them off, the HID lights off, and it will tell it no more, stop, and it won't run your battery down. So even though you're connected directly to the battery, it will still turn off whenever the Jeep says, hey, okay, that's it, kill them.
Yeah,
so just thought I'd bring that up.
Yeah, we're not, I'm glad you did, because we're not altering the wiring in your Jeep. We're not changing anything. Everything's fully reversible. We're just taking the signal and passing it through. So it's completely removable, completely reversible, no modifications necessary.
Great point. Okay, so let's talk about CAN bus now, because that is a problem. 12-volt wiring is no longer what it was back in the 80s and 90s. It's a little bit more complicated. So what is it about the CAN bus that causes these problems when you swap out electronics that requires this anti-flicker harness and all that?
Yeah. Now you're gonna make me sound like either I know what I'm talking about or I have no clue what I'm talking about.
Time will tell which one it is.
So here's the real basic way to think about it. There's this thing called pulse width modulation, and there's all this stuff. So let's just put it this way: the Jeep's computer wants feedback that things are working, right? That's basically what it boils down to. When it doesn't get that feedback, it says, "Oh, something's wrong. I got to give a light out warning," or something to that effect. So all we're doing is keeping the same level of feedback, I guess you could say, back to the Jeep. So at the end of the day, Jeep's happy. Jeep doesn't know that you just swapped headlights out, right? All they turn the Jeep back on, everything looks great. Everything is reporting the same. Headlights are working on or off, high beam, low beam, and you're happy. All right, that's the one thing we get that really customers should not worry about is with our lights, there is absolutely no flickering. Everything's been taken care of, and there's nothing to worry about. There's no extra things to install. It's all built in.
So, for the record, this is not just a headlight issue. It's a problem with all of the electronics. It's the same reason why if you switch to LED turn signals without adding a resistor, or LED tail lights without adding a resistor, you will get either a fast flash, or some sort of a light out warning. Right. It's because it's constantly pulsing that, and if it gets a different resistance than it's expecting, then it's going to assume there's a problem. So because these lights have less resistance than the incandescent lights that are replacing, it sort of throws the system off. So I know a lot of you guys will have that problem if you start LED taillights. If you get some that aren't designed to deal with that, usually become a problem, because you'll get this, you've got a light out on your dash when you really don't have a light out. So
yeah, we call it hyper flash. That's why sometimes you'll see those big gold 50 ohm resistors that you have to put in line. Those suckers get real hot. You got to put them against some metal, and basically all that's doing the same thing. It's just increasing
adding resistance.
Yeah, to fool the system.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see here. So I am kind of wanting to check and make sure I answer any questions. They're starting to get a few of them in there. One question that actually, and I did a little bit of testing of this. I put a FLIR thermal imaging device on the headlights when I first installed them, while I still had one old LED and one new HID in, to sort of demonstrate, and I may not have done that great of a job, to sort of demonstrate the difference in heat output. But one of the questions I have here that came in was about the heat output, and the fact that Northeast folks, which I don't know if we actually talked about where you're at, but you know more about this than probably anybody else, but they have a problem with not enough heat to melt the ice on their headlights. So talk about that, how it pertains to LEDs and then the HIDs.
Yeah, sure. So to answer the first question, we are in Buffalo, New York, And here on, what is it, April 5th, April 6th, it's snowing today. So
So you know a thing about this, right?
yeah, but yes, so it's a great question. Some guys will get concerned about driving at night, and the way that the Jeep JK, specifically the grill, has that shelf underneath where it kind of butts up against the light, all that does is pack snow. So when you're driving at night in a snowstorm with your LED headlights that aren't generating enough heat, you're either going to have to stop and clean them off, or hope for the best. So our HID bulbs get significantly warmer, and it's on par with a halogen light. Believe it or not, the halogen lights get very, very, very warm, and our HID bulbs are right up there. So the good news is everything's vented in the back to prevent any kind of condensation or fogging issues, but you also get the benefits of that extra heat. So you will be able to melt the snow and the ice. You won't be having to stop or pull over in the middle of a snowstorm to clear off your lights. It's just a kind of a comes with benefit of the product. And they work fine in the middle of the desert too. So there's no issues worldwide with our stuff.
Yeah, and to be fair, there are LED lights that do come with additional heater elements to solve that problem, but most people don't have those. Most people have standard LEDs, and it's just like anything else. You can touch an LED light bulb, and it'll be cool to the touch, where you touch an incandescent light bulb in your house, and it will be hot. Same thing with the headlights.
Right.
So another question, I was just looking, I'm trying to cheat here and look at my phone at the same time here. There was another question specific. This was an install related question, sort of a tech question. So I figure this would be a fun to hit right now while we're sort of talking about this stuff. But his question is in relation to the daytime running lights on a TJ. So TJs don't have DRL circuitry built in. And what he was told was the easiest way to wire the DRLs, I'm assuming he's either using Halo or something like that as DRLs. It doesn't really matter. The concept will be the same. Was to tap into the parking lights and then use that as the DRL lighting source. The problem he says is now I have to have my parking lights on all the time if I want my DRLs to work. And where should he tap in to get power? And should he install an inline fuse? So I mean, my initial react would be, if you tap into an ignition-based circuit, you can either do that through a fuse tap in your fuse box, or tapping into one of those ignition-only, like an accessory wiring circuit. I would definitely use a fuse, but that would be something that would turn on your DRLs anytime your key was turned on. But what do you have to say about that, Tom? Am I on the right track there?
That's exactly what I would say. Fuse tap into the fuse block. So find something like the radio fuse is usually what we tell people. Open up your fuse block. There should be instructions on the inside of the cover, and you should be able to locate your radio fuse. It's probably a 10 or 15 amp fuse. Head down to your local auto parts store and get what's called an add a fuse or a fuse tap. And what it does is it looks like a fuse with another fuse receptacle on top, and then maybe a few inches of red wire with a butt connector. And what that allows you to do is you remove the radio fuse, you put the fuse tap in, you replace the radio fuse into the receptacle. Now you have two fuses, and now you have that red wire coming out. So you basically have doubled it. And you can now use that 12-volt source as your daytime running light. And you still have to ground the other part to complete the circuit. But anytime your ignition is hot, you'll have power to that accessory.
Yeah, and I think that's the great thing about the fuse tap method is because it's sort of it adds the fuse into that circuit automatically through that process, as opposed to tapping into some other wire. And then again, not so much with a TJ, but even on the JK, some of those circuits are the same pulse width modulation type circuits that tend to not like having other things added to them. So the radio is a good choice. Sometimes people have the cigarette lighter circuits that are good to tap into, as long as that's not always on. If a lot of them are on only when the ignition's on. But yeah, that's what I would do if it were me.
There's a lot of great aftermarket wiring setups too. Like if you're ready to go to the next level and buy a wiring control module, we've got a few options on our site. We've got our own brand of one. We've got the Switch Pros. S-Pod is another great one. But that's a significant investment. That'll give you a second set of relays and fuses and switches. So now you can decide if you want to trigger those with an accessory wire, or if you want to run them straight to the battery and have the ability to turn your things on or off even when your Jeep isn't on. So really cool stuff if you want to start adding extra switches.
Right, and that's actually where things get a little bit hard to follow along with what somebody else did, is because there's so many ways to achieve the same end goal. I use a product called Waterproof Fuse Relay Box. It's basically just a fuse and relay sort of box, like a switch pods or whatever. And I have a lot of my accessories run off of that, but I also have stuff tapped off the fuse box in the same way. So lots of options.
Yeah. Yeah, there's lots of information online too about how and where to tap into that stuff. So we're happy to help if customers have questions specifically. One of our guys had a TJ for a few years, and we've got a JK here in the shop. So we definitely have access to show you guys how we did it, or maybe run out and take pictures if we need to.
Right. So one thing I don't want to skip over that we sort of, I think we hit on like 5 or 6 times during our conversation so far is the headlight aiming. I did an entire video on it. It's so important, though. I wanna stress it and talk a little bit about it because it's surprising to me how many people don't really think about that, and not even in the context of just swapping out headlights. But you put a lift kit on your Jeep, you need to go re-aim your headlights. Anything that you do that's going to change the orientation or the height of those lights would require at least a check of your aim. So on the JKs, I did do a video. I did it during the series of installing these HID lights because it was important enough that I felt like I'm going to dedicate an entire video to it. But there are a couple schools of thoughts on this. I think Tom, I talked to you about this before. I'm pretty sure you sort of subscribe to the same thing, which is the roll up to a wall with a flat surface. And then mark your. It's really actually because the HIDs have such a very fine cutoff. It's really super easy to aim them because the cutoff is so sharp. Trying to aim a blob is a little bit harder because then you're just looking for the center of a hot spot and trying to guess, is this about the brightest area on the light or not? Sometimes you get it right, sometimes you don't. But with the cutoff, it's really easy. I use a piece of tape that's 2 inches wide because I do a 2-inch drop over 25 feet as a starting point. But I just roll up and put tape right where the cutoff is. I get as close to the wall as I can so that basically I'm at exact headlight level. The only thing keeping me from touching the light to the wall is basically my bumper. So I get as close as I can, and then I roll back 25 feet, and then I adjust that light to where it's at the bottom of the tape because I use a 2-inch tape. So that basically gives me 2 inches drop over 25 feet. And that works for me. It's actually worked really well in this current iteration. Some people find that's still too bright depending on how their, if their vehicle's higher or for whatever reason. But if you, I want to make more, I turn into a jerk sometimes when I talk about this, but I don't mean to. But if people are flashing their brights at you constantly, it means your lights are blinding them. It's not their fault. It's your fault. And I kind of go on to a rant because I see a lot in the forums and in the Facebook groups and stuff of people talking about how, if somebody flashes them, they turn on their light bars and they hit them with full brights and full, 10 million watts of LEDs. And it's like, all you're doing is being a jerk. The reality of it is the reason they're flashing their lights at you is because you're doing something that is bothering everyone else. And almost always it's the headlight aiming issue. And I see a lot of people talk about the fact that, well, I've got brighter lights. I mean, that's what it means. And I've got a lifted Jeep. That just means you're going to get blinded. And it doesn't mean that at all. You can aim even your factory headlights down. But when you replace your factory headlights with these super bright, was it 18 times brighter? Is that the official number? 18 times brighter does not mean 18 times more blinding. It just means brighter. To get rid of the blinding part, you aim them appropriately, and the cutoff is actually really cool. I was telling you, I drive around and I look at where the cutoff hits, and I look at it on oncoming traffic too. And almost always, I'm just at the base of the windshield as oncoming traffic's coming, and I feel comfortable. I'm not blinding them, and I have yet not once to get the brights flash since I switched to these HIDs. And the other thing, and this is something that I kind of wasn't expecting. But there's like a band of light, as opposed, because it's controlled light. So when you go over like hills and up and down, and you're going down a hill and then you're up and then you're over, sometimes the light actually even goes above them and then sweeps down and then goes below them. So even if in that period of time where everybody's going up and down hills, and like every light's bright, it doesn't matter, what you have, you're only hitting them with the band of light during those times, as opposed to like this full on, I'm trying to find the camera, huge bright, and then it goes away. So I thought that was kind of cool how the band is it's so narrow, yet when aimed properly, lights up from like as far as I can see over the hood, right? Because that's where I can see anyway, and then goes all the way out to the horizon line.
Right. Yeah. That's the point of harnessing the light. But yeah, I mean, you did it the technical way. We have an easy way to do it. We basically say if your cutoff should be about 36 inches from the ground when you're parked 25 feet away from a wall, or even easier when you pull up behind a car at a light, you're at about trunk height. So yes, you can easily adjust them. I think you showed it well in your video. There's a couple of stock adjustment screws, and just turning them one way or the other will move the light up or down. The nice thing about our housing that we didn't cover is that it's so easy to adjust the horizontal alignment of it by just simply twisting the headlight in its orientation inside its bracket. So if your light comes out and your cutoff is wonky like this, you've got to make it horizontal. And it's easy to do. Just a couple of minutes with the screwdriver. And we talked about it in one of our videos too. Just make sure you're taking your time when you put those on, and do your aiming right then and there. And then you can tweak it a little bit here or there once you've gotten comfortable with what you want. And Chris, your initial reaction was perfect. It was, hey, I'm not sure where these go. I'm too low, or I'm too high, or one was off, or one was higher than the other. And all of a sudden now you've got it and you figured it out. And once you get them both horizontal and at the right height, you're dialed in and you're ready to go.
Yeah, it really is. It's easy to do. It's important to do. Now, somebody did comment on the JK. So again, this is sort of a lot of JK owners watch this channel. So everything tends to be hinted towards there. But I don't know actually on the TJ what they have for light adjustments. I haven't really looked at that. Maybe I should. Anyway, on the JK, there are the two that basically adjust the up and down aim of the light. There are other adjustment screws that will adjust in and out. Those are not adjustable from the factory in a North America market Jeep. So somebody actually hit me up and said, "Oh, I've seen other videos where they adjust. There's this other screw you can use." So I just want to say, I know about that adjustment. It doesn't exist on my Jeep without making a modification, which is why I didn't talk about it. You can buy a screw adjuster to replace your, I think it's just a pin or something like that. It's not adjustable from the factory. But if you buy a European spec Jeep, it actually is adjustable. So that's the difference there. Is the North American market, they've said for whatever reason, they don't want you to be able to adjust left and right, only up and down. The European market, you can adjust up and down and left and right. But you can modify your American Jeep if you want to do that. I haven't done mine, and I don't see a reason to, really.
Yeah.
Let's see, what else? Let me check, make sure that I've got any new questions coming in. You got anything on your phone, Tom?
No, but we can go through the lineup. We haven't done that.
Okay.
Should we go through the rest of the lights?
Oh, yeah, we'll do that now, and then I got another couple questions, so that'll be perfect.
Well, I can make this fairly quick, but one of the most common questions we get is, what's the difference in the rest of the components? So we went through the classic light. So now we can go through the revision 2.0, the revision 2.0 signature, and then the revision 2.0 chroma. Again, they all have the same. This is the 2.0. They all have the same projector in the middle. This has what's called the monster shroud, and that's consistent in both the 2.0, the signature, and the chroma. What you see here, and this is our brand new one that we just launched this month, these are angel eyes. So you've got an angel eye in the front of the shroud, which is this smaller circle. You've got an angel eye in the back of the shroud, if you can see it here. It's kind of behind these windows, and it's offset and also slightly larger. So when they're both on, you get the kind of a staggered approach. That's really unique, and you saw it in yours when you were doing your turn signals.
I love that.
Yeah, they now have both bright white, dim white, and turn signal integration, and there was no change in the price. So not only have our Angel Eyes and Halos gotten better, they've gotten brighter, and now they also come with turn signals. So let me show you the difference between 2.0 and the Signature. Now the difference, if you can see it, is the halo. Halo is the perimeter circle that goes around the outside of the light. I'll put this one down so I can show you. So this is going to go all the way around this way. And then it also has the same white Angel Eyes in here, front and rear. These are all switchback. All three of them are switchback. And you've got a red devil eye that goes in the middle. Now that red devil eye we get a lot of questions about. That's just a small LED that gets mounted behind the lens, and it just glows in a red color in this case. It's not your light output. It's just there for show. All of these items should be hooked up to a switch or wired in appropriately so you can control them when you'd like. But it does have that distinct feature. So again, the only difference between the 2.0 and the 2.0 Signature has halos and red devil eyes, right? They both have these white angel eyes in the front and the back of the shroud.
Nice.
Yeah. Now, one more. We'll show you the chroma. So the chroma is kind of one of our most popular. I think the Signature is probably the most popular, and the chroma is right up there. It looks just like the Signature, but the angel eyes and the halos are all color changing. And there's an optional color changing devil eye. You can get it with it or without it. So with the color changing items, you get a Bluetooth remote, and you can change colors to any color you want. There's all sorts of built-in modes. There's 20 different features. They can strobe, they can flash, they can beat to music. You can take a picture of a color and they can change to that color. They can do all sorts of really cool things. So these are kind of the show-off lights that a lot of guys like to use when they're out at events or out wheeling or just taking pictures for the gram. But whatever it is that they're doing, this one kind of allows you to do it. So we get a lot of really good folks who, like, for example, I think we did Autism Month and everybody turned their lights blue. And then on St. Patrick's Day, they were all green. And here in October, they'll be pink for breast cancer awareness.
That's
right?
cool.
Yeah, it gives you that kind of a feature and functionality. So these are so cool, so fun to play with, and really allows you to just dial in any color and any shade of color that you want. So if blue is your accent color, but it's a teal blue and not a royal blue, boom, we can do that through the app. You can even adjust all the RGB values right there.
That's cool. I kind of get lucky because orange is, amber. So in my accent color is that orange. So I could cheat if I just wanted to go with one color, and that's why I went with your new ones with the switchbacks and sort of cheated that system a little bit. That does remind me, though, all of these things, these different colors, you have to make sure that you understand the laws in your area, because if you're driving around with your blue halos on, you will get pulled over eventually. The only colors in most jurisdictions that are allowed to be out from the front are white and that amber orange color. So that's why your turn signals and all that stuff are amber and your headlights are white. So just keep that in mind. I know probably common sense, but I do see a lot of people cruising down the highway with green LEDs or whatever on the front, and you really just have to be careful and make sure you don't violate the law when you're running around with these things, particularly when you get into blues and reds. The local enforcement agencies really like to hang on to those colors for the emergency vehicle. So
yeah, we try to be upfront and honest with all our customers, and really do encourage them to check their local lighting laws and make sure that they're not purchasing something that's going to get them in trouble.
Right. So since you brought up the chromas, I did have a question. This came through on Instagram, I believe. Was because I installed the Signature 2.0 series and not the chromas. I don't know what's the difference in the wiring for the chromas versus, like, I know I had a separate driver box for each halo or LED. What do you have with the chromas? Is it the same thing or is it different?
It's similar. So I think it's actually an easier install, in my opinion. So with the chromas, everything's going to plug right in and ultimately lead to a Bluetooth controller box. That Bluetooth controller box then has power coming out of the back of it, power and ground. That needs to be powered to a switched 12-volt source, along with the power leads that are included for each individual driver, because there are driver boxes for the color changing halos and angel eyes. Once that's done, all that goes to the same 12-volt source and the same ground. You're done. So it plugs right in. Now, there's a lot of wires when you open up the box of the chromas, and that's probably one of the biggest questions we get, is folks feel overwhelmed. But you mentioned it in your video too, again, just lay it all out. Everything plugs in one way. It can only plug in one way, and then it ultimately all leads in the chromas, an example of the chromas, to a white controller box. That white controller box is it's about that big, and that's it. Then you get a power to ground coming out of that. It's literally two connections, and you're up and running.
Nice. All right,
Spend more
another.
time hiding wires than you will hooking them up.
Wait, say that again.
So you'll spend more time hiding the wires, tucking them everything in, than you would actually powering things up.
That was one of the more challenging things, is figuring out how I wanted to run and deal with those wires. But yeah, it can be done. You just gotta be patient, and
Yeah.
your level of tolerance for perfection will be challenged
Well,
on how much you want to spend doing that.
yeah, we extended quite a bit for our wires to give people more room to play with, so we don't have to dictate where things go now. You can kind of come up with your own ideas.
Right. Well, I like that on mine. I don't know if you saw on mine, but I ran my passenger side all the way over to the driver's side across the front of the grill because the wires were long enough, so I didn't have to run them on each side. I just ran them all off one side. It worked out perfect.
Yeah.
So I did get a question on YouTube about the life of these bulbs. Let me make sure that's actually a really good question. It says, what's the lifespan of the HIDs? I got LEDs, and they claim 60,000 hours. Apparently, I got them interested in HID projectors. So what's the life expectancy of the HID lights?
Yeah, let's talk about that because we actually didn't talk about component quality. We didn't really talk about bulbs or ballasts. So we've done a ton of research. We've been doing this for more than 10 years, or almost 10 years. And through that, we've seen a lot of different brands come and go. We have partnered with what I would honestly say, hand on heart, that we have the best quality bulbs and ballasts in the industry. We partner with a company called Hilux for our ballasts, and if you guys want to do any research on them, phenomenal company, rock solid performance. It's as close to OEM as we've found, and it literally speaks volumes when it comes to that. I can say definitively, we've had very, very, very few failures of those ballasts, and they should outlast your Jeep. Same thing with the bulbs. In this case, we partner with a different company called CN Light, and just again, highest quality products that we can find. They work directly with us to brand them for us, to make some small changes just for us and for the lights in particular. And you'll notice that when you get your product open, you'll kind of see that they come in a nice branded box. They've got our logos on there. It is a kind of a co-partnership with these companies that we've helped over the years, or they've helped us rather come up with a product that is both going to be reliable and outperform. So there is a difference between stating 60,000 hours or stating quality, right? So I think I can't really put a number behind our lights because, to be truthful, I haven't tested them for 60,000 hours. But I would say that we've been doing this for a very long time, and specifically running this type of product and these types of parts, and they have been by far and away the best quality ones that we have found. So you are going to spend a little bit more on our components, but in the end, they should outlast your Jeep.
That's awesome. And then, so I guess I looked at it. It looks like if you did have a bulb go bad, which maybe it won't be a problem, it seems like it's pretty easy just to change out that one bulb, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the bulb is held in with a clip, and it just kind of removes just like any other stock bulb would be removed in some ways, shapes, or forms. And there is a cap over the back of the light just to prevent any kind of dust or water intrusion. So that would have to be removed. But in that case, if you're covered under warranty, we walk you through it. We send the parts out, or we can do it for you. And if you're not covered under warranty, our tech support team is there to help. But yeah, if you've got a thumb in a few minutes of your time, you can swap the bulbs out.
Nice. So one thing I do want to make sure that that we cover, because I really thought about doing this, and that's you have a design your own option on your website. So you can go in and sort of customize and build pretty much whatever you want. I'm going to pull that up here on the screen here, and I'm clicking on the design your own. And as you can see, there is like, what light type do you want? Revision 2.0, custom headlights, 2018, plus Jeep JL. Oh, is the JL different than?
Oh, it's different. Yeah, we just came out with that light. We're the first ones in the market with a custom JL light.
It
Uh,
figures they would change something that ruins it all for
yeah.
everyone.
Oh, they're very different. Very, very different. We'll cover that on another show.
Okay, yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. I think the differences between JL and JK are probably going to be covered a lot here
Yeah.
in a variety of forums. So anyway, so you've got the custom headlights. Oh, you do custom. You can do custom fog lights. I didn't realize that. We'll talk about fog lights here in a second. So you can pick that, and after you do that, you can go through and pick what shroud you want. The monster shroud is the one that comes default. I actually like that one anyway the best. Then you can go in and pick your shroud color, and yeah. So what I like about this is you can get as creative as you want and develop, whatever you want, and then you'll end up basically getting this tally of a system over here. Now the one thing, so everything we've already talked about, I think, has been. Let me just actually hit double eyes. I want to try and get through the system here because I want to see the bulbs. All right, so what's the so I see there's 3 different options of bulbs: 43,000, 51, 50,000, and 6,000. What is the stock bulb that comes, or I guess the default bulb if you buy one of the package lights?
6,000. Just it happens to be our most popular choice, so that's what we've been running.
Okay.
We only carry those 3 colors because within the color spectrum, we found that those perform the best. So a higher number isn't brighter for folks. You probably should know that. 6,000 isn't necessarily brighter than 5,000, which isn't necessarily brighter than a 4,300. It's about the color or the mixture of salts inside the bulb. A 4,300 is we call a bright white with a slight tinge of like a yellow, kind of like a stock-ish color, almost like a halogen-based color, but not quite. The 5150s are like pure white, and then the 6,000s are pure white with just the slightest tinge of blue, and that seems to be the most popular choice for guys. Each one has different benefits and drawbacks. Each one kind of has their own personality, but we don't recommend anything higher than a 6,000. So you don't want to run an 8,000 or 10 or a 12,000 K bulb. Those will get into the very, very deep blues and into your purple colors, and it ultimately just washes out and underperforms, and it'll significantly reduce the output.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because I've got the 6,000 obviously, and the light, it's not blue light. Like I see people who buy the imitation HID bulbs, and they basically just put out they're like blue coated bulbs that look horrible on the street, by the way. So don't buy those. But they're trying to fake and imitate what you get, but it's not the same. I like that it's like there's a blue like fringe of light around the HID. Is that where the cutoff line is? You know what I'm talking about? There's like this rainbowy sort of thing.
You're talking about what we call color flicker, and it's actually a pretty interesting phenomenon. And so, yeah, it's like a rainbow effect that's coming off the top of the cutoff shield. And depending on the modifications you make to that shield, you can actually alter that or change it in a way that you want to see it. But yes, when you pull up to like a white garage door or something like that, you'll see a beautiful purple color band on top of your cutoff.
Yeah, that sounds like another one of those things that people who know lighting, like that's one of those, like the sharp cutoff and that little color band, like those are things that people love. That if you're not in the scene, you probably don't even really notice or think about. So back to the back on the website, you have two different types of ballast here. You have a 50 watt and a 35 watt. Now the 35 watt is the one that comes standard. Why would people want to upgrade to a 50 watt, or why wouldn't they?
More power, Chris.
Well, silly me for even asking. Next question.
Well, we talked about our lights being 18 times brighter with a 35 watt ballast. With a 50 watt ballast, you're bumping up the power even more. Probably another, don't quote me on this, I would guess in the 30 to 40% range on top of what we've already quoted. But that power comes at a potential risk, right? So what you're doing is you're providing more light through the projector, and that light, that bulb, is creating UV output, right? And UV light is going to be detrimental over time to the projector and the components inside. It's not heat. It's not any hotter than a 35 watt ballast. It is putting out more UV rays. So really what that means is the inside of the projector has a chrome coating, and that coating can wear out faster if you're overexposing it to those extra UV rays. So we tell guys, if you're going to go 50 watts, you're going in knowing that you're potentially, right, because it may work, it may not, right, over time, you're potentially increasing or decreasing rather the lifespan of the projector bowl. And what that means is maybe 3-4 years away from now, you might start to see the output diminish because the chrome reflective properties inside the projector are starting to dull, and that's what's happening because of the UV rays.
That's interesting. Well, I can tell you, running the 35 watt, I see no reason to go brighter for normal road use. Those are plenty bright.
Right, and it's all relative. If you're driving 20 minutes a day, what's going to happen with a 50 watt versus a 35? I really can't tell you. We don't have enough data to really put numbers behind it, but I'll kind of cheat and say sometimes I run the 50 watt ballast just
R&D.
Just because, man. No, but yes, we 35 watts are just phenomenal, and they're going to be extremely reliable. Like we said before, they should outlast your Jeep. If you're going to go 50, the 50s are the same guys who are running these 40-inch tires on their day in the 30s and hoping that they don't break, right?
Oh, you do know Jeepers. Nice. That's awesome. All right, so last thing on the custom stuff, you have this custom lens etching service, and I'm kind of scrolling through some examples, but how does that work? And does that change anything about the output of the lights or anything like that?
No, it's really a novelty, and to answer, no, it's going to depend on the etching. But here's two examples we did. This one is kind of a crosshairs etch. This one is just a star. We do a lot for company logos and just different folks who want to do something different. It has to be your own logo, and it can't be anything that's got a copyright on it, obviously. But it just further differentiates the light and allows you to do something that's truly personal to you, because that's kind of why we're here. But to answer your question, the output typically isn't affected, even when it looks like most of the lens has been etched. It's just a frosting, really, of the back of the light. So you don't have to worry about too many output changes, not unless the whole thing is basically being etched with a big logo on it. That would probably change the optics. But yeah, it's just another cool way to add some more personality and without impacting the performance of the light.
Nice. All right. Well, let's see. We've been going for a little over an hour. I probably don't want to take up too much more of your time. We probably have some more questions. How about will you be able? I'll keep in touch with Tom. So if you guys have more questions or questions I didn't get answered, we will try and hit those up. Maybe we'll do some comments to the YouTube video. And make sure we get everything sort of addressed for you. But I do thank you, Tom. Do you have anything else you want to add before we close up? I don't want to steal all your time this afternoon.
No, that's great. Oh, the one thing we didn't touch on there real quick was just kind of custom painting. You mentioned in the design your own feature, but we get a lot of requests for color matching. So if you've got a gecko green Jeep or an orange crush Jeep or mango tango or whatever the color is, and you have that paint code, that's where you click on the custom color, either for the housing or the shrouds, and we paint them to color match your shrouds. One of my favorite is Hydro Blue Pearl. Comes out real nice.
Nice. Yeah, no, that's good to know. That's awesome. All right, sir. Well, thank you very much, and I hope you don't get too much snow in this awesome, what should be spring day.
Yeah, I hear it. Yeah, so can we do our YouTube sign-off where we go, smash that like button, subscribe now?
That's right. You got to do that. Hit it all for me.
It's always wanting to think of that. All right, thanks, guys. I really do. It's always a pleasure chatting with you, Chris, and feel free to bring me back on anytime.
Likewise, and thanks a bunch. And everybody, thanks for watching. And yeah, what Tom said, if you like this video, smash that like button. And please subscribe to this channel so you don't miss any of our content. Hit that bell, and you'll get notifications. Now I sound like a real YouTuber, don't I? All right, guys. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you on the next one.
All right.